cambiar vidas,
change lives,
change organizations,
change
दुनिया में
organizations,
बदलाव.
Change the world.
My name is Wang. I represent the Institute for Information Industries in Taiwan. I'm serving as the CTO and EVP. Okay, so today I'm going to share with you on what we have been doing in terms of enabling technologies and also in the applications in the smart city related areas. So I'm going to first very briefly talk about the global trends, opportunities, and challenges the smart city efforts are facing. And I will talk about our approach and some examples of the smart services that we are trying to enable, and then look at the next steps. Okay, so we are facing a situation where we have exponential population growth that still continue, that was started 100 years ago, and now I think it's the climate of it. We also are facing the energy crisis, where some of the critical energies like oil, we have already faced the peak. Or in the next few years, the production will be pick out, and then the resource will start to decrease while the population increase. We are also facing many different issues like pollutions, climate changes, and such. And all this, give us a sense of urgency on how to improve, our city, our environments, and such. Okay. On the other hand, we also see this as an opportunity, given that the public awareness of the situation increasingly becomes more accepted as the challenges, and technology are also advancing. So there are some opportunity for us to do some things to create real impacts in this domain, and also we can see that there are many opportunities for us to do better. Yeah, for example, the 67% of the U.S. energy was electricity was lost in transmission, and which is a significant amount. And if we can manage the distribution better, we can do a much better job in leveraging the energy. And also, 25% of the world carbon emission was created by the energy requirements. So that 67% really is a significant issue. And also, the projected growth of demand will continue to increase. On the other hand, dealing with the smart city challenge is actually not an easy task. A smart city, basic as any city, has all of these infrastructures, government service, environmental issues, all the people, who are living in the city, who contribute by also creating waste, problems, traffic jams, and somewhat waste of energies and etc. Within the city, and which is a very complex problem to solve. Okay, and there are many problems that make it hard. For example, so far we don't have enough standards to enable better utilization of the ICT technology in this environment. In some areas where we have standards, they still have lots of space to improve. And in many cases, like for example, we have smart building standards, we have green building standards, and smart is not necessarily green. Green is not necessarily smart. Yeah, and also most government and enterprise face significant challenges in budget, particularly with the global economy that has been in the ditch for many years now. And then all these parties and stakeholders in the city have conflicting requirements, and resolving these requirements is also very difficult. All the ICT technology that try to solve this problem are too expensive today, and the ROI are not easy to justify. So many projects, face immediate difficulty once they started, and face difficulty in justification when they finish. So this is really something that need to be addressed so we can get real success. And also many efforts, focus on specific issues. So you have solutions for many problems, but there's a lack of coherent, comprehensive methodology or system to address the issues. And as I mentioned earlier, many different problems have conflicting requirements, and if you don't have a holistic approach, you might gain some and lose some in the other space, and that cancels out the effects of the efforts. And that also highlights the importance of having the integration standards and such. Okay, and most of the infrastructure today are rigorous, and they are often siloed. And this applies to technology too, probably more so in technology. And so we need a common platform that can enable, reusable components and very quickly, very agile, scalable solutions can be built on top of this platform. And this solution can also be reused very easily across these different problems and solutions. Okay. And another big issue is that once we start to enable these solutions, we very quickly find that we are overwhelmed by the data. Okay. And Cliff mentioned earlier that we have 12 billion devices today, and will be 50 billion by 2020. And each of these devices generate lots of data. And this data, if we manage them well, they will create value. If we don't, they just create cost. Okay. And there are many possibilities, in smart cities that we can leverage ICT technologies to enable. And this includes many areas that are critical to our living standards, to our health, to our well-being, and to the security and comfort of the city and the occupants. And there are some key technologies that actually Cliff mentioned, almost all of them. And I just want to emphasize the importance of becoming smart, right? In both leveraging the resource, but also leveraging the technologies. Okay, so let me just briefly pause to talk about our approach in addressing the challenges that I just described. Okay. First of all, as I mentioned, we need a common platform, so we are building a common platform. We are trying to establish this platform based on existing technology that include analytics, which I mentioned earlier, the big challenge of the big data, the BPM, business process management, because in the city there are many processes that need to be managed. Service-oriented architecture, which enable data integration, and also allow loosely coupled integration, which is important when you try to leverage many different IT systems. Also, event processing, string computing that enable the real-time event management, and also system engineering that put a system perspective into all these complex structures, contents, process issues, and data, so we can better manage them. And then cloud technology to enable the computation, so that we can have better performance and also can deal with bigger problems on the cloud. And all of this also depending on a systematic infrastructure that allow us this systematic reuse. Okay. And building as infrastructure is of no use if you don't use them. So we actually are trying to leverage this system that we're building, and also, I guess, doing by learning and learning by doing, in applying the method tools in 3 different areas. One is smart green, one is healthcare, and the other one is smart communities. Okay. And this chart, I'm trying to illustrate the common problems that we face. SPRIE has been working on many different solutions in the past few years. And the past approach was basically identify the problems, working on solutions, and develop the solutions based on the common infrastructure, which basically is the basic infrastructure, all the cloud services. But there's a huge gap, between the basic infrastructure and the solutions. In this case, we basically are not reusing any of the system that we built. As a result, they become very difficult to manage. Their values are limited. Cross-system optimization is not possible. And when you think about that, if you build a smart building management system, you have air-conditioned systems that manage the comfort of the occupants. You have, the employee efficiency management system that support the work. You have elevators. You have, the energy management systems. But all this actually have sometimes are conflicting with each other. If you adjust the temperatures to be too high, you decrease the productivities. If it make it too low, then you waste the energy. And so there are many conflicting requirements that need to be managed. And unless you manage across the systems, you cannot really get efficiency. So this is really something that need to be managed. And of course, when you have different systems that are built from ground up from the infrastructure, they are very difficult to reuse, and they are expensive to maintain. And traditional development approach is difficult to change and update as you learn more about how to manage this smart system services, and you need to often redevelop the applications, and which is economically not feasible as well. Okay, so our approach is basically trying to fulfill that gap by building a smart system service common platform in between. And we use a model-driven approach, which basically means you divide the problems into multiple layers. You try to specify from the top level based on the user requirements and the environmental requirements, and then from there down to the business layer, where you specify the operational models without considering the technology complexity, and then you map it into the platform independent architecture, where you start to worry about the architecture complexity, but you don't need to worry about the platform dependent complexities, and so on. So this approach basically allows you to, one, very quickly build a system based on your specific need, and also it makes the reuse level much higher, because now if you can reuse a sub-process, then any IT components that are associated with the sub-process can be easily reused. And we also, at the business level, we specifically pull out the event processing pieces, the business process model, the lures, and such, and some of the common analytic models out of the development, the IT components, and make them contents, so that you can easily change these contents, and then you can change your systems very quickly. For example, if you change the management rules for the building energy saving, then the system behavior immediately change. So you don't need to reprogram that. So using this approach, we believe that we can enable agile development agile development of the smart services much quicker, and also we will allow us, creating a layer across different subsystems that we can perform optimization of this subsystence using the common platform. Okay. Okay. So just let me briefly explain the smart system service. Smart meaning that we can actually perform cross-domain, cross-discipline optimization so that we can really achieve the ultimate goal. So basically solving the smart city problems are basically managing many conflicting requirements, and you're trying to find the ultimate solution within those constraints. And by leveraging the big data analytics and modelings and business process management and such, we believe that we will be able to make systems much smarter. And because of the complexity, we need to take a very systematic approach. And the model-driven approach I described is actually what the IT industry had learned in the last maybe 10 years. And then we can also create systems of systems, and actually smart cities probably, I need to repeat that system of systems several times because it's such a complexity, there's such complexity involved. And by solving the subsystems, and then we can then solve the higher level subsystems incrementally, we believe we can incrementally increase the efficiency of the solutions as well. Then, of course, there are many services that the smart cities need to support. And so this system basically provide process operational support through the process model, dual models, provide the real-time event processing, and also support the basic service IT services model and information model, and then the performance models and the decision model, so that we can define the KPIs and then instrument the process to collect the data, and then use the data to manage the optimization of the systems. Okay, and I mentioned that we also think reuse is critically important because we have very limited resource in developing smart systems, smart city services, and so we actually allow reuse across multiple layers, from the strategic models down to the operational model, to the execution models, to the implementation models. And we actually build a smart asset repository. We are actually building, I shouldn't say build, building the smart asset repository that provide a number of critical functions to manage this assets so that we can enable a better reuse. Okay, so let me briefly talk about the applications, the smart city services that we are, testing now with the platform, and I guess it's obvious that smart green is important, and also it's predicted that by 2020, we can achieve much better CO2 management, and building, transportation, and power are three major areas. And the building is critically important because, like for example, in U.S., the buildings consume almost half of the energy, and then 75% of the total electricity. So it's one of the biggest consumers of the energies. So if we can improve, the performance of the building, then we can improve the performance of the, we can manage the energy usage much better. Okay, and I mentioned earlier that we divide the system into layers. So in this case, we take a smart building management services as an example, At the lowest level, we have the devices, different kind of devices. They include ACs, elevators, cameras, actuators, meters, and such. And then there is usually a control level on top of these devices that control this, and it has limited degree of intelligence that can perform local optimization. And then we have an integration gateway that collect the data and also send down the control from the top level to these individual controls. And then there's an IT infrastructure that manages all the resources that are needed by the system, including the network computing, remote storage, and the cloud enablement and such. And then there's an information integration layer where the information model is defined, the data are managed as well. Then there's a process management layer that allow you to manage all this process. On top of that, you have the smart analytics that enable you to optimize across the board. And later on, what we are trying to do is that you can, on top of optimizing a building, then you can, going through the cloud, you can optimize many buildings. And you can learn from these other buildings on the usage patterns and such, so that you can enable better management that way. And then there's a dashboard that had, based on the user's role, that provide different views to the systems. And a key important enabler is analytics, where the smart city services will produce many data, and then use the data to recognize opportunities and to balance, these conflicting requirements, like providing better user experience, providing better building efficiency, and such, using the modeling and analysis to find a better way of doing that. Okay, and the optimization model is actually based on the operational model, the decision models, and the information model that we created. And in this way, when you modify either the analytic model or modify any of this operational model or the information model, the system can improve its performance. So this allows us to continuously to improve the system. Okay, and there are other services that we are working on, and excuse some of the Chinese. And basically, one project that we are planning is the smart community service platform, which it's based on the building platform, but it provides much more services to the occupants, and also provide many of the shared services to increase the efficiency. So if somebody coming into doing cleaning services, he or she does not need to drive many miles to go to the next household to perform the service. You can pre-schedule that and allow the sharing of the services within the community within short distance. And so is the car rides or babysitting or remote care and all these other services and energy services. We can pour those services so we can reduce the cost. And later on, we believe that these communities can become virtual communities. Then you can actually expand the reach of these services, which becomes, enablers for smart cities. Okay, and there are many other opportunities other than what I just described. And SPRIE is working on a few others, like smart grids, smart microgrids, and also the smart media applications, and logistics, supply chain optimizations, and such. And all these are critically important for the enablement of the smart cities. Okay, and there are some other examples that, my time's up, so I won't be able to go through, but certainly just, providing, our perspective to share with the group, and certainly look forward to your feedback. Thank you.
Cambiar vidas,
Change lives.
change organizations,
Change
दुनिया में बदलाव.
organizations.
Change the world.